The inward block is a very simple and effective block from an initial attack. We're simply going to take our palm, load up on the outside of your body, and cross inwards, cross your body to the other side of your face. But something that looks very simple actually has a lot to it. There are 7 main parts to this which we are going to explain, and we're going to practice each step because our aim is to make you a lot better than if you just watched YouTube clips or going to a basic self-defense class. The first question is, how much do I block? A lot of the beginners see that if a little block is good, then a big block must be a lot better. But in this case, it's not, because the further out you take your hand, the weaker you are. You don't have strength further out. The second thing is you've just opened up your body for a second strike from the attacker. So we're going to keep this a lot closer to our heads. If you can picture an attack coming towards you center, we're going to block it sideways. And if this attack is now going to miss you even by an inch, it's missed you. So there's no point in taking it any further than that. So picture your attack coming out. You're going to block inwards and just stop on the other side of your head. At the moment, we're going to take the second hand back to your waist. I want you to practice this a few times. Don't worry yet what you're doing with your hand. We're going to explain that. Simply taking your hand past your head, the second hand back to your waist. Practice this enough times until you're comfortable. Pause the video and carry on with the next step when you are ready. The second point is being able to relax. A lot of beginners especially think the more they tense up, the harder they are, the more effective this movement's going to be. And that is not the case. Most of these techniques require looseness in your body. So I want you to now practice. Now we're going to take it just past the head, but as relaxed as you can, putting no force behind it. The more relaxed you can be, the more effective this movement's going to be. Because if you look at a target, the more relaxed you are, the harder and the more effective this is going to be. So the second thing is just practice being relaxed, taking your hand just to the other side of your head. The third point is the arm. The arm doesn't stay straight as is coming across. We're going to be whipping our arm across. You'll know that using a whip to hit something is going to hurt a lot more than if you hit something with a stick. So as we're going to bring our arm across, we're going to lead with our elbow, with the wrist back where it's comfortable. But as you come forward, your wrist is going to then move forward and add speed towards that block. So we're going to load it upwards, we're going to lead with the elbow, and when that's close, we're going to move the hand forward or the arm forward to add a lot of speed. So we're going to practice this a few times, loading it up to the side, leading with the elbow, and when you come up to center, move the wrist forward. So practicing both sides, elbows leading, wrist moving forward. Elbows leading, wrist moving forward. Practice that until it becomes comfortable. The fourth thing is the wrist and the hand. Just like the arm and the elbow, this doesn't stay straight as we're blocking. As we lead up, we're going to use the same whipping technique as we mentioned for the arm. So when you load up, your wrist is going to be behind your elbow, but your hand is going to load up backwards. And as you come close to where you're going to block, the wrist is going to move forward, and then the hand is going to move forward on top of that. Each one of these is adding more power and more speed to the technique. So loading up the side, the elbow moves forward, the wrist moves forward, and then the hand is going to add a lot more power simply by moving the wrists. So we're going to practice that. If you're already familiar with bringing the wrist forward, now we're going to bring the hand forward as we get close. Start off slowly. Once you've got the movements, you can start speeding it up and getting used to it. The fifth thing is the shoulders, and they don't stay straight while you're performing this movement. You might get the hands right, but you don't keep your body where it is. In the advanced section under mechanics or strikes, we're going to talk a lot about where your power comes from and the direction of power. And most techniques, forward techniques, it is straight out in front of you. So that's why we don't do a lot of techniques to our sides, because we're not strong off the center. So we can load up to the side because we're not hitting anything there. But as we execute the movement and your target is in the middle, we're going to hit it when it's on center. But the more you move off center, the weaker you are. So in this case, when the block comes through and touches, you're going to move your shoulders to where you're going to block. And it doesn't need much because we're only going to take our hands to the side. So practice a few blockings that once it is on center, you're then going to relax and let your body move into the movement. What we're going to see, or you're going to feel, is when you've got a target, if you look at each one of these individually, that you don't move your hand, simply by using your shoulders to block, you can block really quite effectively. But if you then hold your arm so you can't use your shoulders, and you can only use the top part of your arm, so from loading up, you're going to add that much power to the shoulders. And if you isolate your wrist so you can only use your hands, you're going to add even more power. So it's each one of these that is adding to each other to have a fast and effective block. The next thing is about breathing, because a lot of beginners practice a lot but hold their breaths, which isn't good. So generally, every time you're going to load up, you're going to breathe in your nose. And when you perform the technique, as you strike, we're going to blow out. So when we load up the second time, we're going to breathe in and then breathe out as we execute. So we can practice this a number of times, but breathing so make sure you keep your breathing going during the training. The last part is about balance. Throughout the site, we explain the yin-yang, the symbol which has two halves in it. Part of this represents equal and opposite forces. So when we have something going one way, we need something balancing it coming back the other way. Now we can use just one side and use that as a block, and we can get that reasonably effective. But when you got a balance to it, we're going to be twice as effective, twice as hard and twice as fast with this. So there's two ways we can now perform this movement. The first one is as we showed you. So the opposite hand is going to come back to your waist. Now the advantage of this one is as you block, your second hand is loaded up to then perform a second or a follow-up movement. But what it means is both hands are going in the same direction. We're going to need a balance force back the other way. And we get that by using our body this time. We're going to be turning our body into the movement, but as we're going to execute, we're going to pull back your body to balance out the block. as you're pulling back the body, you're going to feel that it's going to be a lot harder. The second way is to have exactly something going the opposite direction. So we're going to use the same block this way, but it's like clapping. If you have an opposite hand, this one is going to be a lot stronger. So we're going to block on the outside like we have, but instead of going back to the waist this time, we're going to take the second hand underneath the first one. Keep it out of the way of everything, but that's going to help you pull the block across. When you load up, you're going to load up this blocking hand above, second hand underneath. So now when you block, it is going to be underneath. So practice this a number of times until you're familiar with it. Once you're comfortable being slow, then you can start speeding it up. The inward block is an extremely useful movement. From simply being used as the initial block from the attack to be able to open up the opponent for the counters, from different types of attack, if you control the movement, to use it as a distraction to then apply the next techniques you want, to the third one, using it as the same movement as the block. This can be an incredibly simple strike, an effective strike in its own right. So practice more about the inward block and check out all the uses for it under the defense section.